Hello everyone, this is Ether Dragon, and welcome back to another episode of Fire Emblem Heroes. As you can see here, we easily made it to tier 28 because we dropped out of the vault last season, or 2 seasons ago. So, like I mentioned in the Resonant Battles episode for this season, we're in a hurry, so unfortunately no full animations because they do take up a lot of time. But I'm gonna be real, there's probably not that much to see. These, of course, are outside of bolts, so there's basically really only 2 strategies people do. Nuke everything, or just end turn. So I don't think the gameplay is going to be amazingly mind-blowing. But we are deciding to run this squad this season just because we don't have Arval as our bonus defensive mythic. So we're just plonking with our 2+10 animal mythics to minimize our maximum lift loss, because while it doesn't really matter what we do for our maximum lift loss for our defense, because again we're up against 2 strategies and we can't really do too well against either one regardless. So we're of course just going to go for it here. We're going to take out Extended Bjorn. Right, and with that, of course, they can now use the ranged unit skill everywhere. They decide to just run, which is possibly a questionable decision, except for the fact that, of course, there's nothing our units can actually do, because Legendary Lilna is running Harsh Command once. Yuri there picking up the exact one-shot after the AoE, but he was probably doubling anyways, so doesn't matter there. You might have also noticed that Dual Lin and Yuri here get to attack Duma in a counter, and that's because once again somehow we unlocked her team. Duma wasn't running just in counter because I gave it to Saros for a different game mode, aka Hero's Journey at the time, I think, so ripperonis. But I mean, at the end of the day, again, we're just gonna see the same themes because that's pretty much how you can reasonably consistently win every season. You just pick 2 strategies that you're pretty good at. Force your opponent to be able to check them, which it's pretty hard to check both. You generally have to pseudo-check them because one of the 2 at least, because otherwise you run into the issue where you can't deal with, or because you can't, your defense can't exactly deal with literally everything. If it could, then people would be spamming it out and no one would be able to win offense, theoretically, because that doesn't exist. But you can sure make it much more difficult for people to beat your defense, given its weaknesses. For example, our defense's weakness is we don't have much of a threat range. So that's basically a death sentence, but at least here our opponent is just checking the units in, so it's free kills for us. And while Duma is just doing Duma things. But on offense for us this week, we decided to use Legendary Marth as our carry, since it didn't really matter who we really picked, honestly, because again, we're outside of ult. Generally, most defenses are cakewalk, and there was pretty much only one team that was a remote, not cakewalk, and that's because we misstepped. And we were about to leave, I believe. I can't remember if it was one of our units that was obviously going to get absolutely nuked out the window in range because again of a mistap, so then I had to have Legendary Marth end turn against 2 relatively strong mages, and he was able to survive, but given its Legendary Marth and his base res is kind of garbage, yeah, that could have turned out horribly, even though he bonus all those extra stats especially the plus 1 HP. Other than that, a lot of people boxed in their defenses with structures, aka if we were to aggro on the enemy, they wouldn't be able to actually chase down the units because there's nowhere for them to go. So, and a lot of those defenses, they also dropped those ranged units, so we just baited the ranged unit and then get free aggro. So even when folks had people or units like Brave Seliph, we could just control how the entire AI moves because they literally had no options to start with, so we can just break an ornament wherever we want to force them to funnel to that area kind of deal. And the whole time we just weren't doing any damage, just literally doing whatever. A lot of times it did come down to turn 7, but of course that's because we were trying to DM and break all of their structures and not activate any of their traps, so 10 out of 10. So it looks like we got ourselves end turn this time around. Let's see what they do here. And again, our threat range is horrible. I don't know how this is going to fare. Not very well. And Ascended Arm going up against Duo Crown. Great matchup. Strong execution on turn 1. There. Duo Crown able to pick up the kill there. It's not gonna run, which I honestly would not do. Just because Harsh Command Plus exists. Does it exist? I forget. It does. But if you know how the AI works, then you can deal with it fine. It's just that for the average player, they don't exactly know how it works, so things can go wrong pretty fast. For example, right now, you have Ascended Fiorm trying to deal Legendary Rolna, and they're not going to be able to do that reliably, so we just have to go ahead, not forego pick up the ether structures. Because of course, no matter which way you cut it, Legendary Rolna's, either Legendary Rolna's going to die or one of their units is going to die, so I decided, meh. Well, here we got Duma against Duma. Not that our Duma is any match for their Duma. The whole new dragon meta of the inflicting specials cooldown +1 before the enemy unit gets the proper special during combat, as long as you have sufficiently enough res, is pretty broken theoretically. Well, of course, long term, there are going to be tech options against that. The number one thing being just straight up having enough res to have it not proc. But of course, any sort of brave weapon spam is already pretty popular, but brave weapon spam with super low cooldown specials is definitely going to be one of them. And here, Ascended Fiorm not going to be doing too much as usual. It pretty much probably just deters people from using some very specific things that are not really matched to the stream at all. And of course nothing is going to happen except Duma advancing very quickly. Not that it matters, you're just going to get absolutely nuked. Seliph taking 0 feels bad. Imagine doing 0 damage. Could be whatchamacallit, Olivia. But here, they just end up stacking Elmi because they didn't have anywhere to get her out of the way. So, sure, not the end of the world, but of course they probably could have won without that unit sack, but so be it. And well, what do you know? It's more end turn. Nothing too surprising here. I was about to say Ascended Robin, rearmed Robin. Definitely been seeing quite a bit of her, especially in Coliseum modes. I can't really tell what to think of her because at the end of the day, she's basically a walking stat stick, and generally speaking, stat sticks just don't age super long term because you can always get more stats in this game as long as you keep playing Forehead. Newer units will just inherently get more stats. So it's basically a matter of how much more stats you have compared to the current meta that determines how long you age. And so, for example, just a super drastic example, let's say there's some new unit gets released and their weapon just gives them plus 20 to all stats for existing. Then they probably age for quite a while. They probably last for quite a while just because it's going to take a while for units in general to get that much more stats to compete with plus 20 to all stats. So in that case, of course, they would age pretty fine for quite a while. Just that all that Rearmed Robin has going in terms of exclusive skills, of course, is Dragonhide, which is definitely pretty darn strong. Because, of course, those heavy debuffs on foe is pretty meta right now, and getting that special cooldown acceleration is definitely nice with Hardy Fighter. And of course, you have Arcane Reno, which is just fine. I mean, the thing about arcane weapons is I'm sure they're going to get progressively more troll and powerful as we keep going through the different weapons, so Arcane Staff win. I do feel like Intelligent Systems they're gonna either save Arcane Staff basically all the way till the end, or they're gonna do it pretty early so that it's still pretty meh. And so generally healers don't get too much of a power boost. Because honestly right now, healers need way too much to be super meta relevant. Because the thing is, you have this issue with healers. I mean, the main issue with healers is that they're competing with this thing called colorless mages. Because they are essentially the same weapon damage. Of course, staff units have to run Wrath staff to get the same equivalent damage. And there's specific units that specifically need overstaff units. Or skills like Mystic Boost 4, for example. But generally, for healers, the only way you could realistically make them stand out is giving them absolutely insane utility, and we all know that's not a great idea. Because way back when, for example, when Emblem first came out, for example, pretty darn insane support, false start, damage reduction, special acceleration. Combat-wise, pretty garbage, but as a support, absolutely amazing. So, just simple example. Or when Melancholy / Witchy-Wand was a thing, and Roku Siege was actually difficult, yeah, that was definitely pretty darn solid utility, gotta say. But in terms of combat, you know, you have units like Young Larshell. She didn't age very well because, of course, her main gimmick was preventing counterattacks, but then units like Ascended Beyond started showing up, or just straight up units with high res stats. So healers with their lower BST can't really compete. So then you just end up getting this scenario where healers definitely have to be just support to really stand out. Having some sort of offensive presence is always nice. For example, Brave Veronica back in the day when she first got her refined definitely was threatening, of course, with her support, but also because she could do some damage. So your super frail units, or frail / slow units, you really couldn't just sit around and not have to be worried about Brave Veronica. Of course, nowadays, Brave Veronica is pretty much not a threat. Unless, again, you're using super frail units. So here, unfortunately, Lif unable to pick up the kill, decided to do I'm doing 2. Didn't have to kill, but it doesn't matter because you have to pick up the kill to pick up the kill. So, rip to us. They can of course go after these structures and all of our structures if they really wanted to, but most folks don't do that, so rip to us again. And with that, that's all of our replays here. Plenty of lift loss, but again, we're out of vault, so it just does not matter. our rank is not going to change too much unless we kept losing every single time on defense, then maybe. And if we really gooped on offense, then there's a possibility we would make top 20k instead of top 10k, but generally top 10k is pretty, or that is top 20k, wait, hold on. I'm confusing myself here. Oops, wrong tab. So instead of say top 30k instead of top 20k, there we go. I was like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. But as usual, we're pretty much RNG based in our Coliseum modes. Fortunately, we're still hanging on top 1k in Allegiance battles. We'll hang on for a bit longer, and then at some point there's just going to be too many people who have good scoring teams for Allegiance battles for us to be able to stay, but until then we're going to be boosting. And here I just figured might as well not even try to stay in tier 21, because again next season we don't really have anyone good as well, so might as well just bounce. And here Arena Assaults, I ended up having to use a dance to fail because I didn't see Kanto control was the thing. So I used Dragon to try and hit and run, and so I hit, but then I couldn't run. So we popped the Dancer's Fail for that, because we were also getting memed on with RNG for scoring. Because our minimum score is 756, and generally we need to be scoring at least 760s to get a good shot at top 1k. So getting repeated 756s and 758s is not a recipe for success. Here we're probably going to make it here, but barely. So yeah, that's the only problem with Windfire season, but that's pretty much why we picked up both Legendary Sigurd and Legendary Lilina. Having both of them is mostly just for arena purposes, in case, for example, here Legendary Celica's bonus, so if we had a reasonably hard Legendary Celica, but we only had Legendary Sigurd and no Legendary Lilina, we wouldn't be able to stack Fire Blastings and get more score that way. So that's the main purpose of that. But also they were just straight up sharing on the banner, focus sharing on the banner we were summoning on, so win-win for us. But anyways, we'll be back when the results drop in.